Hi, my name's Cameron Carlson with AnimeLocation.tv. I'm here at Ohayocon 2023 with Cole Feuchter. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So, quick question, real fast. How did we start in the world of entertainment?
You know, it's kind of funny. When I was growing up in school, I wanted to be an actor. That was like my dream. I wanted to be like James Bond or something, you know. But unfortunately, I was heavily bullied going through like elementary, especially middle, and then high school. And it kind of made me totally forget about that dream. And then when I was in college, I was kind of having a bit of a existential crisis, as you do. And I was sitting there one night after working on some sort of homework, watching the Japanese dub of Free Eternal Summer.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a episode towards the middle to end of that season where the main character Haru is going through quite the same kind of existential crisis of, what do I do after this chapter of my life? Is there a future? Do I have a future? What is it? Like, all of that. And I'm dealing with the exact same thing in the real world. And, you know, my friends and family had always told me, you'll get through it, it's fine, everybody goes through this, but that kind of stuff just goes in one ear, out the other.
You're not thinking right at the time.
Right, and it's so cliche, you hear it all the time, and it's just whatever, people don't understand, you know. But to have a fictional character in a fictional setting, in a foreign language, all the way across the globe, experiencing the exact same thing that I was experiencing in my own personal real life, I was like, well, I guess they're right. I guess it is a real thing that people go through. It really is okay. If this character can get through that, I can get through that. And it, in that moment, made me realize that that voice actor, that Seiyu, through their acting, through their real emotion, clicked with me, made those words click in my head, and I realized that I could be that voice for someone else. And that's, from that moment on, I started pursuing voice acting and trying to do exactly that for someone else.
Awesome, man. So it says in your resume that you've had some training from other great voice actors in the DFW area. What's it like when you get training from them?
It's really fascinating. You're right. I've trained with Kiba Walker. I've trained with all the talented people at Iolite Studios, like Brian Massey. He's great. Chris Rager, David Sobolov. I've even trained with some people in LA, like Caitlin Galt.
Yay, Caitlin!
It's really cool to learn from other people. There's a saying that actors love to steal from one another, and it's very true. Learning from other people is so cool because everybody has their own way of kind of analyzing the character work that they do and how they take their own experiences and interpret that into this character, and seeing that and learning from those people has helped me, I think, a lot grow to where I am now and where I continue to go, and it's super exciting to learn anytime I get a chance to.
Yeah, because we just right before you had Mr. Kent Williams, so we talked about his training. So
Love
really cool.
Kent. Love Kent.
Now, your time in the industry, you've done quite a number of visual novels. How much fun is to work on them and hope that players make the right choices to hear the right dialogue options? You know, because especially with some visual novels, you know, the character might go away after you make a choice as the player. So what's it like where you're like, I really, really hope they get to see the full extent of what I got to record?
It's visual novels are really kind of an interesting little beast in the voiceover world. It's one of those things where you, most of the time, in my experience at least, record before the CGs and the character art and stuff gets made. So you really don't have anything to go on in terms of how serious does this need to be, how angry do I need to be, how sad or heartbreaking do I need to be. So your own interpretation of what those lines you're given are can really affect how that story unfolds for the player. So it's really cool because the characters I normally play, I've played a few characters that you can, are the dateable routes. I played one in a game where it's basically inspired by Venom. So that one was a lot of fun because I got to be really kind of crazy and off the wall and kind of made him the thing that everyone wants Venom to be, you know, if you catch my drift. So that one was a lot of fun because I've seen the feedback and how much people loved that character. It ended up becoming a fan favorite character in that project, and the creators maybe thought, well, this character's probably not going to do that well, but when they saw that feedback, they were kind of blown away. So that made me really happy because that's that's really cool to hear.
Awesome. Now, you also happen to work on the show Titan's Bride. How's it like working on that show?
The Titan's Bride was great because it was when the manga came out. For those of y'all that don't know, Titan's Bride is an adult BL isekai fantasy, the whole shebang. And when the manga started coming out, I remember seeing on Twitter and social media and stuff like that, people freaking out because it was this really well-written BL romance with all the rest of the stuff that goes into that, of course. But it was doing it in a way that really kind of hadn't been done before, and people just kind of fell in love with the story. So when we got to work on the Titan's Bride, I got to translate it. Because I speak Japanese, that's what I went to college for. So I got to do the translation work on the show, and then I got to play a couple different characters, Koichi's uncle and a basketball player in the first episode. Seeing the manga brought to life with animation, and then seeing the fan excitement and the response that this crazy adult thing was getting made into an official English dub. Like, people were freaking out because it's not really something that gets done a whole lot.
Correct.
So the demand for that kind of content is growing rapidly right now. So when we got to do that, it was kind of like we were kicking down that door and starting something new and great. It was really, really exciting.
Right, and now you also happen to work on a really fun show called Blue Lock, which was awesome because it happened to be airing the exact same time as the World Cup. And I just remember the jokes going around the internet of like, no, Blue Lock is real. They have a really real. So it was like being on, like, watching the World Cup, being in Blue Lock and going, yay!
One of the really cool things is that the Japanese soccer team also was wearing uniforms designed by the Blue Lock mangaka, and that was super cool.
Yeah.
I love Blue Lock so much because I voiced Tada Tominari, who is literally one of the first characters to speak in the show. Wow. I am literally the guy that misses the goal in the very first episode that starts the whole thing off. I'm the reason Isagi has to go to Blue Lock, technically, so you're welcome. But I remember being called in by Jonathan Rigg to record for it, and I was so excited because we all knew Blue Lock was coming because we'd seen the advertisements or whatever. And we knew it was going to be big because the animation style, the art style, you can just tell with certain shows, you know?
Yeah, it's really well done, really well respected.
Exactly,
really
yeah. So when I'm in the booth and I'm finding out that I'm Tada, and I'm this guy that misses this major goal that would have set their team up for success, and then I'm just like going hysterical in the background like, I'm so sorry, I ruined everything. I got told repeatedly for weeks after that every time that scene came up while they were recording the other characters, both Jonathan Rigg, the director, and Jordan Cruz, the assistant director, would just bust out laughing over me going hysterical in the booth. So that made me happy because I felt like I could actually be funny. But I also, like the cool part for me is I also got to decide how the rest of the cast was going to say Isagi's name, because I'm the first character in the show to say it, and I was the first person to record it. So it helps that I do speak Japanese, so I know the correct pronunciation, but we recorded two different ways just in case, and they went with my first instinct, which is so cool. So Isagi is Isagi, you're welcome. I just love Blue Lock so much.
Alrighty, now you mentioned online in part of your resume that you happen to work on the YouTube channel with Kiba Walker called the Retrocade. How's that partnership between the two of you, and what's it like when you get to sit down and actually work on it?
I love streaming so much. When I was in high school, I had a couple of friends who we got together and we started to try and do Let's Plays.
Right.
Like back when Let's Plays were a thing before Twitch streaming and all of that. It didn't go so well because one of those people that's no longer a friend kind of just like steamrolled everything. It was not a good experience. So none of those ever like made it to being posted on YouTube or whatever. But
kind of a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. When I met Kiba, at the time we were both working for GameStop. We were both assistant managers in the same district, and we both had a love for retro games because it's what we grew up on the N64, the GameCube, and all that. And what I was trying to do at my store at the time was build a tiny little retro game section because GameStop had finally started taking retro games in trade again. They didn't want them kept in the store. They wanted them to go to the warehouse for testing and then be sold exclusively online. But I'm like, no, these games have to be sold by hand in person because people want to get their hands on it and see the quality of it, make sure that's something that they want to buy because most of those people are collectors now.
Correct.
So I got permission from my regional leader at the time, jumped over my district leader,
Nice.
to build a little section in my store and test it. And I was communicating with all the other stores in my district saying, if you get retro stuff in trade, don't send it to the warehouse. Please send it to me instead. I'm building this. I'm trying it. It's working. Please give it to me. So Keeb and I were constantly talking back and forth. He would send me stuff from his store, and we'd go from there. So I came up with the idea because I knew he also sort of streamed on YouTube here and there. And I said, I'm trying to get into voice acting. I know you're a voice actor. I want to do streaming. I want to do Let's Plays and use that as a launching pad for myself for voiceover because I like to voice dialogue in games and stuff like that. And he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we created the Retrocade. The goal of the Retrocade was to bring the games from our childhood that we grew up falling in love with to an audience that maybe never got to play those games, or maybe they're too young so those games aren't available anymore. But bring it to new audiences while also bringing nostalgia to the audience that has played them and misses them, while sharing the thing about those games that made us fall in love with them. So it was just a way for us to share that love, and we still do it. We focus mostly on retro still, but we do some modern stuff too. Like Kiba right now is focusing on Kingdom Hearts randomizers. I'm probably going to start doing Zelda randomizers because Zelda's my thing. So I'm excited for where it's going. I love doing it so much. So if you're interested in checking it out, it's twitch.tv/the_retrocade. Please come check us out. I just adore it. So much fun.
Sorry, you made me feel a little old when you said GameCube is retro. I was like, okay, listen, man, you're talking to an NES, Sega Genesis guy over here, so you're a little younger of the retro than I am.
Well, I was born in '91, so I'm not.
I'm born '87, so
We're same generation. It's all right. It's all right.
So now you also happen to work, as we said, for GameStop at the time. You got to work on GameStop TV, which, funny enough, you had another fellow voice actor, Brina Palencia, used to work on GameStop TV. So what's it like, kind of following in, another pretty well-known voice actor's footsteps?
So I started at GameStop right at the end of her tenure on GameStop TV. I think I saw her in store a couple of times when I was shopping, but as an employee, I think I only got to see her on TV twice before she was no longer on the program. I did not get to do GameStop TV until after I stopped working in the store, which is fine, because that was honestly more fun.
Right.
GameStop TV at the time that I was doing it was focused on segments created by content creators. Instead of doing their hosted show with a couple people doing segments and explaining games that were coming in, stuff like that.
Right.
I enjoyed that format a lot because I got to write the script myself.
Okay.
They would give me the title of the game that I was going to go all in on was the name of the segment. They were deep dives on that franchise, that particular game, however you wanted to do it. Most of the time it was a deep dive on the history of the development of that title.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that because I got to explore games that I loved and got to put my own personal influence on that, if that makes sense, about why I loved that game,
No, I completely understand.
while also explaining where it came from and how it came about. My two favorite segments that I got to do were the breakdown of the official timeline for The Legend of Zelda for the release of Skyward Sword HD on the Switch.
Yeah.
They told me I was literally the only person that they could see doing that segment because they know how much Zelda meant to me.
Yep.
And then the other segment I'm super proud of that I got to do after that was a Sonic the Hedgehog segment for the release of Sonic Colors Ultimate.
Yeah.
Instead of doing a deep dive on how Sonic became Sonic, I did that, but I put a spin on it instead of being a deep dive on what Sonic means to people as a symbol, because Sonic has grown so far outside just a video game character.
It's a whole culture.
He is literally a pop culture icon for Americans, and that's literally what he was designed to become, and he really did do that. But it was such a profound segment. I even got feedback from the GSTV team saying they had never had a segment like that before, and they were extremely proud to have that segment because of what I did with it and how I put so many people's personal touch and the way Sonic touched them in that segment, and it made it a much more emotional segment, if that makes sense. And I'm so proud that I got to do that.
It sounds like you have a lot of passion for it and everything, and I'm glad you have your passion. So we understand that you guys have NDAs, and it's tough to not want to talk about a project, but is there anything currently currently right now as a recording that you're allowed to talk about?
The most recent thing that I can talk about is Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
I got to record for Chainsaw Man, which was absolutely outstanding. There are things coming up that I can't talk about yet that I'm very excited for, so you'll have to stay tuned for those. But Chainsaw Man was a lot of fun. I got to do episode 11. That's the episode where Beam and Angel come in. There's a bunch of Yakuza people, police, and zombies.
Yeah.
And I got to be all three of those different types of characters. It's funny because Kiba Walker and I were doing that session together, and we were both going through our mental Rolodex of different zombies throughout pop culture to make sure we're making all those different sounds in those Wallace sessions, because we were having to do layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of those zombie noises. So we're like, okay, let's do the Last of Us clicker noises. Let's do the typical kind of moan. Like, just go through them all. Don't blow out your voice. You got to do this like 1,700 times, so let's go.
That's Kiba had mentioned that when they were up here recording with us as well about the zombie stuff.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So wrapping things up, where can we follow you online, and what message would you like to give to the fans that have been keeping up with you in your career?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone that is a fan of mine, following my career. I literally it just inspires me to keep going. That's the reason I'm doing this. Like I said before, is I want to be that voice for whoever needs to hear it out there, like I had happened to me. Can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Lord Azria. It's Azria. Hive, if you use Hive, it's just Azria, Azria. Of course, the Retrocade, the _Retrocade, like Retro Arcade on Twitch and YouTube. Yeah.
All right, Cole, thanks so much for coming out and talking with me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.